Welcome back, I'm Annisa Omar. Now earlier we spoke of the connections made between major technology companies and child exploitation in mines, which is regrettable. Amidst a growing technology scene in Ethiopia, young entrepreneurs in Addis Ababa struggle to break through the government's business regulations. And while Somalia is one of the poorest nations on earth, it's leading the way with mobile money, transfer businesses, and here is a report from Adama Munu on how countries are innovating their way in the world.
As the sun sets over Addis Ababa, the city's young entrepreneurs gather at the relaunch of the X-Hub, a workspace where Ethiopia's techies are creating the country's first mobile apps and web-based businesses. With one of the fastest growing economies in the world, Ethiopia has become home to a budding tech scene. The capital now boasts 3 IT incubators that offer training to young people interested in starting their own businesses. And with 70% of all university students required to study science and technology, the country is brimming with potential for technological growth.
Now everybody wants to own their own business. Everybody wants to create something new, and they want to be entrepreneurial. So even within the rate of unemployment, the amount of people that are coming out who are educated and the job opportunities are not matching. So definitely there's a lot of room for innovation and entrepreneurship.
But even with a growing interest in innovation, starting a tech business in Ethiopia is no easy task. Florian Manderscheid manages ICE Addis, another tech hub in the capital. He's watched a number of the city's startups stumble through the complicated process of registering a business, which can take months. And even after registering, government limitations on foreign investment and a lack of interest from local investors can kill the most promising business ideas.
It's right now very hard to find investors still because there is no venture capital model or no legal framework from venture capital right now here. And I believe once the banking system opens a little bit up, there will be a very big boom, I think, in startups and technological development.
Felix Sege, an American entrepreneur with Ethiopian roots, managed to find investors to start his company Deliver Addis, the city's first food delivery service. But running a web-based business in a place with one of the lowest rates of internet and mobile phone penetration in the world isn't easy.
Typically in those markets, there's a way to transfer payments very quickly and very easily, and here that doesn't exist quite yet. I think once you have a way for entrepreneurs to make money through technology, I think you're going to see that change very, very, very quickly.
One of the ways in which entrepreneurs are making money through technology is through mobile money. And while Somalia is one of the poorest nations on earth, it's leading the way on this on the continent. Whether it's to pay for a new shirt or a cup of coffee, about 1/3 of adults are using their phone to do it. Somali shillings come only in 1,000 shilling bills, which are worth about 4 US cents. No other denominations are available, and their value continues to plummet, leaving Somalis little choice but to use alternative currencies.
waxaan dhihi karaa lacagta Soomaaliga inflation waaba dhaaftay xataa wax lagu tilmaami karo inflation ma xataa hyper inflation xataa ma aha waa sii dhaaftay marka sidaa daraadeed lacagta Soomaaliga dhigaal badan ma geli karto macnaa meel lama dhigan karo taas marka waxay keenaysaa in dadka ay isticmaalaan lacago kale lacagahaas kalena waa lacago dadka u suurtagelin karo inay ogolaashahana badan tahay lacagtaas maxaa isleeyahay lacagta ugu badan ee la isticmaali karo waa ama dollar ama waa euro ama waxyaabahaas oo kale.
But out of adversity has come innovation. Zod, a mobile phone platform inspired by Kenya's M-Pesa service, has boomed since its launch in 2009. And those that don't use Zod have developed their own electronic payment systems.
adeegan EVC-ga waxaan ugu talagalnay macaamiisheenu in ay mar kasta ay ku adeegtaan ay uga rogtaan airtime-ka markii intaas oo marayo ayaa bulshadii waxay u baahdeen adeegan in ay wax ku kala gataan ay wax ku kala wareegsadaan dadna adeegii EVC-ga.
Today, more than half of all African countries have at least one tech hub, and investments through the tech hub model more than doubled last year. And though the tech scene in Ethiopia and Somalia are in their infancy, these young entrepreneurs hope to usher in a new era of technological growth. Adama Munu, Africa This Week.
To discuss this, we have Charles Sekwalor, co-founder of the company Move Me Back, an international platform and network between Africa and the rest of the world. It aims to push the economic and social change, and budding business owner Ahmed Noor, founder of Tasty Go-Go, which is a Somali food service launching next week in London. Thank you for coming on the show, guys. So I'll move to Charles first. Why do you think such technological entrepreneurship is rising in Africa?
Hi, Annisa. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me too.
Yeah, so technological entrepreneurship, I think, firstly, we need to understand that there has been a global trend of entrepreneurship rising in general. And I think that's been somewhat down to both the advent of the economic crisis, but also what we see with millennials and the fact that they are potentially looking for more, and also a different way in which people approach their life and work. When it comes to technology entrepreneurship, I think it's very much playing an enabler role. So it's not a case that we are looking for new solutions which are necessarily about technology, but it's a case that technology is becoming an enabler for allowing people to do things quicker, easier, and cheaper. And it is particularly pronounced in the continent where, for many decades, in fact, those entrepreneurs who really could be the life of new solutions are prohibited from doing so due to cost or various other factors.
Can I just interject? In terms of particularly Africa, we know that it's one of the fastest growing continents in terms of economic growth. So do you think that is one of the main reasons, or do you think there are a multitude of other policy agendas and economic settings that are building this new initiative?
So I think it very much comes down to need. So if you look at the African African economies, if you look at the levels at which development has proliferated through Africa, there is, if you benchmark that against the rest of the world or various other, let's say, developed nations, there's a long way to go, just from basic solutions through to things such as banking services, where 80% of the African continent are unbanked. So I think this is what's really driving it. It's a case of need, but at the same time, there's opportunity. And when you have need and opportunity, that's where entrepreneurs ultimately will thrive.
So I understand that's looking more at sort of the internet and how that's really moving forward on the continent. But bringing Ahmed Noor into our conversation, I understand that in terms of Somalia, that mobile money is a really big initiative that's going on in terms of, as Charles alluded to, the fact that there's no banking. What are your thoughts on the importance of mobile money in Somalia?
I think, hi, thank you for having me. I think when it comes to, let's say, mobile money, as you said, there's no banks. A lot of people, for example, they might be in the countryside, they may just be tending to, their farms, but then what they will have is, as long as they have a mobile phone, they can use a mobile wallet to receive money. So instead of trekking all the way into the city, so that's one example where it solves a need. People who would otherwise have to either send representatives into the nearest city or the nearest place where some sort of agent would be. So that's one example, but I think just in general, it allows people who may not have access to, if you don't have a bank account, you don't have a way of carrying money without it being unsafe.
And mobile money mobile money isn't obviously an international initiative. So do you think it has helped your business to come about, and it has helped you in different ways in that regard?
Well, I think because we're mostly at this point in time located in London, it hasn't, not in terms of this particular business, but I think just in general, I think it helps people send money. One example would be the World Remit, which at the moment operates in the Somaliland region and operates around the world as well. It's a new startup, and it essentially aims to, it's riding this whole wave of using mobile money. And it's, for example, instead of, let's say, Western Union, which is mostly based with, on agents. Again, anyone who has a mobile phone, that's connected to their partners can receive money. So you can go download the app, send money, the person on the other end can receive that money almost instantaneously. So in that sense, it helps connect people. It helps, it helps bridge that gap, and It's quite revolutionary.
It is very revolutionary, and I think it links well with Charles's organisation, Move Back. I understand that you work a lot with NGOs and understand that it is a way of really infiltrating markets that would otherwise not be tapped into Africa, would you say, Charles?
Yeah, again, Annisa. So Move Me Back, I mean, what we are is a global community of talented individuals with a tangible interest in Africa. Actually, what we're trying to do is work on the premise that if you can bring really talented people together into one space and align them under one theme, then they can do a lot of really interesting things. And in our case, we're looking to drive social and economic development on the African continent. But really, the problem we are solving is that if you look across Africa, there are so many solutions which need to be created. There are so many challenges and so many opportunities. Mm-hmm. We believe that the pool of people who are working and looking at those things should be widened to a global group of individuals. And when we look at the diaspora and we look at the potential of the diaspora, both if you want to look at it from an academic point of view, from a professional experience point of view, or from a capital point of view, that is what we're trying to tap into and providing access and transparency of the opportunities that exist on the continent and making them available to these individuals, and then in turn helping them to move back to those opportunities, or in some cases people are not moving back, but move to those opportunities and engage in some way, either physically on the ground or in some form of virtual means.
In terms of constraints, so we're talking about developing countries that GDP is perhaps low, and understanding that it's not necessarily easy to start up these businesses. What has been your constraints as someone that has been trying to set up such a business, interestingly, on an international platform?
So, I think GDP can be a factor for some, but I think for entrepreneurs, when you're looking at some of the biggest challenges, it's items related to such as information. For example, if you look at the African continent, one of the biggest challenges that we face is access to data, access to information. If someone is trying to set up, let's say, a manufacturing industry or something in the retail sector, what you need is data. You need to understand your consumer. You need to understand how things operate. And that's been one of the biggest challenges that we've faced, actually, a transparency of working in markets where there's an imperfect access to information.
And a lack of research and understanding as to what the context is. And do you think that's a failing of multinationals in regards to the taking of resources and not perhaps the putting back into local communities?
I think certainly that's one angle to look at the current situation. But I think we have to recognise that many of these countries, many of these nations, they are fairly new. There is an economic development cycle which is ongoing. There are many parties who will play a role in that. You have your multinationals, you have your government, your policymakers, you have your entrepreneurs, and you have the consumer and the citizens. I think ultimately we do need to be patient with these markets. These things will happen over time. When the opportunity in itself becomes or proliferates on a global scale, that drives in the influx of more companies, more organizations, more entrepreneurs. And ultimately, if there are commercial forces in play, and in this example where we're looking at data, that data is of value, organizations will come into the market and they will provide that, if you take a purely capitalist view of the world. From another point of view, you could say that governments and policymakers perhaps need to play a better role in identifying core areas or core enablers which will help their economies.
Ahmed, can I ask, what are the constraints that you have faced in terms of setting up this Somali food business? And why a Somali food business? Do you think it was a time of opportunity now?
Actually, at the moment, we're starting up with a Somali restaurant. So it seems that it's solely focused on Somali food. But actually, it's more about alternative cuisines. It just so happens that the first one is Somali, and, So we're promoting that angle, but it's actually about promoting any sort of East African or West African or any other sort of, because when you order food, you usually get a pizza or you usually get maybe Chinese food or Indian food, which is what most people do. So the idea is actually to get those, to target smaller restaurants or cuisines that are not as well known and to sort of bring that to the world. So it just so happened that the first one was Somali. So that's what it was. But it's not necessarily just solely focused on that. But of course, being food that is not as available, it is part of it. As far as constraints go, I think it's just mainly, we haven't faced any constraints specifically in relation to nothing more than any other business starting up in London, not in relation to this project, to this venture specifically. I think it was just mainly, working with
Can I just interrupt, Ahmed? In terms of bringing the conversation back to Africa, do you think that entrepreneurship, in terms of not just technology, but general the ability to create your own businesses, you think that in our example in the video of Ethiopia and Somalia, it's because there is a low unemployment for young people in Africa?
I think in general, if there is low unemployment, it is an opportunity where people can do certain things. I think with technology as well, let's say that there are companies where, there are opportunities, for example, where people, whether it's India or whether it's, let's say, parts of Africa, actually mostly India, where people learn certain technology skills. They learn how to develop websites or etc. And then they can find employment where people anywhere can go and hire them for small projects. So in a sense, technology enables people to connect around the world and to explore new opportunities. And as you said, if there's unemployment, that's one way to look at it. But yeah, so that's one thing. On the other hand as well, whether it's technology or otherwise, I think if there's a need, then there will be, there will be an opportunity for people to innovate. I remember there's a case of a company in Kenya which recycles sandals left on the beach so they can make that into toys.
Very interesting.
And another example where there was a small 13-year-old child in Somalia where just because he was left at home most of the time, he was experimenting with, let's say, making small electric toys from things that he finds around the house or metal cans or whatever. And I think he's got a scholarship.
So it's innovation then, Ahmed. Yeah. Would you agree, Charles, that innovation, technology is the way forward for the continent?
Yes, I think innovation is key, especially when we look at the continent and we look at how often entrepreneurs and organizations will try and adopt what we've learned from the rest of the world and implement. I think innovation is very important because what we need to do is to see where we can adopt models which work across the world, but innovate in a way which is relevant to Africa's set of unique problems and its unique set of challenges, but also the way in which these markets operate. So, undoubtedly, anywhere in the world, innovation is important. However, in addition to innovation, I think if you look across a number of verticals, industries across Africa, it's not as if you require huge amounts of innovation to achieve basic things. For example, if we look at the food manufacturing space, Nigeria is one of the biggest producers, or Africa's largest producer of tomatoes, yet it imports tomato paste. It's the largest importer of tomato paste. I mean, how much innovation is really required to set up manufacturing processes to take raw material and turn it into manufactured material? So
it's innovation, but also a practical element there of really working with what you have, but creating it for an African context. Well, it's been wonderful speaking to both of you, and I've learned a lot myself. Thank you for your comments on this particular matter. We'll be keeping with the theme of business this week. Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, has built a tomato factory in Nigeria, hoping it will help tackle unemployment and indirectly combat Boko Haram. For the past 5 years, the Dangote Group he heads has been working to build a 14 million tomato processing plant outside the northern city of Kano. Aaron Charles tells us how this humble fruit could change the lives in the city.
It's a situation that mirrors the giant oil industry, where Nigeria has abundant resources but has lacked the capacity, will or ability to exploit it, forcing a reliance on imports. But Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, is hoping to change tomato production with a giant factory that will boost domestic output, create jobs, and even indirectly fight Boko Haram. For the past 5 years, the Dangote Group conglomerate he heads has been working to build a 14 million tomato processing plant outside the northern city of Kano. But it's hoped that the giant factory, the size of 10 football pitches, will help by tapping a potential agricultural gold mine. It's an enterprise worth pushing as Nigeria grows some 1.5 million tons of tomatoes every year, making it the 14th biggest producer in the world.
This plant is fully automatic plant. It is an ultra-modern plant, and this plant will take the 120 staff. That is the 24 hours they will operate it. It means 60 people will be in a morning shift and 60 people will be in a night shift. That is the way we will control, operate this entire plant.
The country's agricultural ministry even puts an annual current demand for puree at 900,000 tons.
Our main focus is within the next 2 years to ensure Nigeria is self-sufficient in tomato paste. We don't have to import tomato paste, but looking forward to being an exporter of tomato paste. So that is our long-term vision for this industry.
When the Dangote factory opens next month, it will provide 430,000 tons of paste that is widely used in Nigerian dishes, from jollof rice to fiery soups and broths. Whilst there have been talks by economists for the need for African countries to commoditize and industrialize their economies, Dangote shows that there still is a place for agriculture in one of Africa's largest markets, and it could just be, in quotation marks, the new oil. Aaron Charles, Africa This Week.
Well, we wish the very best for Aliko and the plant workers on that venture. We've come to the end of the programme, but I'd like to thank all my guests for joining me today and to you at home for watching. We'll now leave you with scenes of the 11th edition of the La Tropical Annisa Bongo Road Cycling Race, which brings together professional cycling teams. It kicked off in Kangoo in Gabon on Monday and attracted huge crowds in the village. Until next week, have a good evening.